Lords, I've added my name to Amendment 369 because I like the fact that it creates a duty on public authorities to respect, protect and facilitate the right to protest, so that a public authority may only intervene with the right to protest, including by placing restrictions when necessary and proportionate. And that's the balancing, I think, that the noble Lord Marks of Henley-on-Thames explained so well in his introduction, because it is undoubtedly the case that there is a balancing act. But I'm pleased to support the amendment because I've never felt it's been more necessary to reassert why the right to protest matters. And despite the noble Lord Panic advising us maybe to not panic, I didn't mean that to be quite the pun as it came out. I feel that there's a danger of complacency there. I think that restating this and this amendment is actually essential. The fact that we need to restate the importance of the right to protest as a fundamental right in a healthy democracy, that it gives us it seems to me, gives us an urgency in championing and guarding carefully and closely what I think is under threat. It allows protest, that is, as the UN notes, individuals to express themselves collectively and to participate in shaping society. It's a system of participating governance. And I worry that if people believe that that right to protest is being eroded consistently, that it actually leads them to take more dangerous extreme measures. The right to protest is a political free expression. And it strikes me, as we've all watched over the last week or so, the protests in Iran, the absolute bravery of those protesters, that we're happy to cheer them on and to say how important it is. But I think we have to, closer to home, also carry on and expressly say that political ideas expressed on the streets that challenge the status quo, that allow people to express anger and their dissidence and their opposition, does seem to me to be worth restating. I do think that there has been a relentless attempt at curbing such democratic expression. Since I've been in this House over 5 years, there seems to have been a relentless stream of laws threatening the right to protest, as the noble Baroness Joseph Mulscombe's just explained. The Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act in 2022, the Public Order Act in 2023 have substantially expanded police powers to impose restrictions on protests, to arrest people for breach of these restrictions, as well as increasing sentences for peaceful protest offences and lowering the threshold for what would constitute serious disruption to the life of the community. Those laws have been passed. They're ongoing with far-reaching have led to legislative crackdowns on peaceful protests. But here we are again, because it's never, ever enough. It does seem to me, as I've argued before, that every time the law is changed, those laws are not enforced, or the police or people in authority say, we can't do anything, we need more laws, we need more restrictions. And so it goes on and on and on. And so I worry that as this has been the third piece of primary legislation in less than 5 years to chip away at the right to protest, that we should be worried. That's why I put my name to Amendment 123, looking for a review of existing protest framework, because there is an awful lot of legislation now that can control and curb one's right to protest. And I am delighted, by the way, about the McDonnell Review, but I would urge that we do need to make sure that the law is fit for purpose and not just keep adding on laws all the time. Because I do fear the impact of the acts on freedom of association, freedom of expression and so on. And so I support both amendments. I suppose I want to admit something, though, which is I don't want to be naive. I also know, despite what I've just said, that protests have changed in many ways. And so I want to, this is the balancing act, I want to work out, and as we enter into a new discussion now on all aspects of protests, I'm aware of the fact that I also need to be open-minded, because I'm completely principled on the right to protest. I do understand, though, that we have to take certain things into account. I have watched demonstrations and protests over the last year or so, or last few years, in which intimidation, anti-Semitic slogans, toxic, intimidating behaviour has happened. I've seen that myself. I can't deny it. There is a more violent vibe around some protests. That's also true. I could not believe, I genuinely could not believe, that pro-Palestinian protests happened after the Manchester synagogue murder. I just couldn't get over it, right? So, and it's not just on that question. I don't want to obsess on that question. There's a whole range of issues that I'm interested in which, when I have been to events, I've been approached by, or rather approached by, screamed at by masked up, unpleasant, scary protesters, right? So I don't want to deny that. I also am aware of the fact that, as the Noble Lord Blencathra pointed out, in terms of, he was using the examples of the likes of Just Stop Oil in the past, that some protests have been used almost as though disruption has been used to bully people into adherence rather than persuading the public to agree. And that's made me feel uncomfortable. But that's all the more reason why we need to review what's on the statute books. I mean, is it fit for purpose? And we can't just keep adding laws, becoming more repressive, more draconian, and keep hoping that we're going to sort it all out, because that's what I fear. And by the way, in response to the Noble Lord Blencathra's amendments, which I do not support, I would just remind him of the kind of disruptions that one gets, or the kind of modern demonstrations. You have a situation where, for example, a protest outside an asylum hotel organised by the Pink Ladies, for those of you who know who they are met with the Stand Up to Racism protesters who are protesting against the protesters, if you see what I mean, and you get a kind of clash there. And the thing that's then argued is that it's disrupting the local community and that both protests should be banned. And it strikes me that that's not very helpful, because it's a perfectly legitimate thing, for example, to say that you're worried about people being put into local hotels, asylum seekers, and I can't just say, because I support their concerns, that I then want to ban the Stand Up to Racism protesters who are worried about them. I think, therefore, we have to also be aware of the fact that, as the Noble Baroness Jones has explained, protest does disrupt communities. I'm also aware of the fact, because somebody, I can't remember who now, talked about farmers, which I actually was outside Downing Street on a protest with farmers on Budget Day. And the thing that was shocking was that the farmers had been banned from driving their tractors, even though until the day before they'd long agreed that they would be allowed to have a protest of tractors on that stretch. The night before, they were banned, the tractors, and actually farmers were arrested for trying to drive their tractors in the vicinity. So I am aware of the fact that, that the argument that it's too disruptive, that it's going to disrupt people, can be used in ways that are very unhelpful. And I would also remind people as well that in the terrible scandal that's emerging in relation to what happened at the Aston Villa march, that I know people who went to the Aston Villa match, in which Israeli fans were banned, that when protesters went in solidarity, or rather a solidarity action, went of people who were fighting anti-Semitism, and went and organised a vigil at the football match in Birmingham, that actually they were fenced in by the police and treated almost as criminals even though, in fact, they were showing solidarity with Jewish people in the local area. So the reason I'm giving those examples is we have to admit that it's a bit complicated and complex, and therefore just saying you're going to ban protests that are disruptive of everyday life actually would be a very dangerous precedent, and I disagree with it. But I do concede it's a hard argument, and we should therefore take it seriously and not just keep passing laws to ban protesting even more.